CHEK-TV. Today we're talking about genetic engineering, and it's a topic that has gotten a lot of publicity over a period of time, but maybe a lot of people don't know what genetic engineering actually means, so it might be a place for us to start for this morning, kind of a definition of it, I guess, what we're going to be talking about. Teresa?
I guess a really simple definition of it is that it's the alteration of genes, and genes are what control people's heredity, and, well, the heredity of anything, so it's changing what things are.
Who's in charge of that changing? I mean, just natural changes that occur?
No, well, genetic engineers, they can cause mutations through radiation and things, and that would change the gene, and that would cause the cell to be different from it naturally would.
Well, how do you know about genetic engineering? That sounds like a pretty important topic.
I've done some research on it for school subjects in biology and debates.
Okay. What about for you, Sandra? What does genetic engineering mean to you?
Genetic engineering? I think it's, well, like she said, it's the alteration of genes. It's sort of a science. It is a science to people. It's a science where biologists can make changes or make similarities between two different creatures or anything. And plants can be cloned or mutated or made better or whatever.
And I think genetic engineering is used to like create, like for fruits and stuff. Don't they use genetic engineering to like make perfect apples and stuff like that for fruits? So
grafting, that's called.
Okay, is there something that concerns you about genetic engineering? I mean, maybe with fruits? Or with vegetables, or is it with humans?
It's with humans. There's certain things that have gone too far, I think, with, well, maybe not too far, because it could be helpful too. But with human cloning, they can take, okay, well, cloning involves the taking of a cell and taking the DNA from the cell, and the DNA is your blueprint of your body. And they can take that, inject it into an egg, place it into a mother's womb, and you can, you would be cloned. Exactly. You'd have the same freckles, the same birthmarks, the same moles, the same everything, the same forelock, you know, everything.
You wouldn't have the same personality type thing, though, would
No, I don't think so. Well, who knows?
Yeah,
They've never done it. They've done it before with frogs and with turtles and things like that. They're exactly the same, except for one's older and one's younger, obviously. But,
Of course, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between turtles anyway.
no, because they have the same markings on their shells. The same, if they had a problem, like if they had a mutation, it would show up exactly the same. Everything would be exactly the way it was on the Earth.
I was joking about it, but I guess at the same time, is it something that is going on with human life, that they're cloning human beings?
No, I don't know. They could.
I don't think it's being done now.
No.
They could,
One
though.
thing that they are doing with genetic engineering involving humans is with heart transplants and liver transplants. And there's been a lot of controversy as to whether that's right to do, because people think it's interfering with the natural order of things by changing these people so that they will live or live different lives.
Yeah, aren't you almost playing God by doing that?
In some cases like that, but genetic engineering can be used in a lot of other instances too.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by using in heart and liver. When you say genetic engineering, you mean like transplants, taking livers from other people and placing them in?
I don't understand either.
How did you mean that?
Well, I guess it wouldn't be the same. It would involve genetic engineering because you have to
find a compatible part?
No, well, I guess in a way, I don't know what I was saying.
Okay. So that sounded pretty good at first, but I mean, that's the kind of interesting thing about this topic. I'm not too sure what to say or think about it.
Well, I know a lot about
myself,
cloning. I don't know anything about genetic engineering, though.
Well, isn't it almost the same? Isn't cloning a form of genetic engineering?
It's just a part of it. It's a small part, but that's the only controversial subject on it. Besides that, genetic engineering can be very helpful.
I don't think it's right.
Cloning?
Well, not on a fruit level, I guess, but not on a human level. I wouldn't.
What do you think on an animal level, like such as breeding racehorses and breeding cows or dogs?
I think that would be okay.
Yeah, instead of interbreeding, I think it's a much better idea than having
but I don't think, yeah, I think that would be okay with animals and stuff, but on a human level, I think that it wouldn't be right, because that's like the one thing that you have is like the way you look, and there's not, unless you have a twin or something like that.
But it's not just for looks, Wyatt, it's for different things such as health reasons. Like, they could clone so many different, they could clone people that were perfectly healthy instead of developing people the natural way, which has a chance of mutation.
But you'd still look exactly like the other person, wouldn't you?
Yes, you would, but because of different circumstances, you wouldn't be exactly like that person. Like, supposing that person lived in the Arctic and you lived in Hawaii, you'd be different in that sense because of the climate. Circumstances, maybe you have an accident, things like that. It's not the way you've been brought up, who you've been brought up with. You're just a totally different person. It's just the borrowing of a body almost. It's not the borrowing of a body, it's just the borrowing of a blueprint of your body.
It's almost like Frankenstein.
Yeah,
it is.
it's kind of scary.
Like they're creating a person, but the person, like it's like you're almost like you're cloning somebody else and you're getting an exact copy of that person. I don't think
and
it's
not
right.
only that, but it can be done to anybody, anytime, without them even knowing it.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
How do you mean? Somebody can come along
They can take a hair follicle, like, off of your head. They can take a cell, a living cell. They'd have to get a living cell that had a DNA in it. They take out the DNA matter.
So even without your knowledge,
that's right, and that's why there's a big issue on whether it should be illegal or whether people should not worry about it, because it's just not going to happen. But it could happen.
Well, I'm kind of sort of feeling like I'm in the not worry about it stage right now, because I don't know too much about it. You know, I'm waiting for you to tell me more about it. What should I worry about with it? You know, you've mentioned one thing, but
this is some moral issues about it, I suppose.
Well, genetic engineering, like apart from cloning, can be used to help people too with curing hereditary diseases and birth defects in babies. They can detect defects while before the babies are born, and they could use genetic engineering to fix, I guess, the defect to that would prevent babies being born with Mongolism and things like that.
Well, I mean, you're saying that while the embryo is actually in the person's womb, that the woman's womb, that they would be able to do something to the embryo to change it in some way?
Well, what would happen if you took a cell, if you took the cell of one healthy person and the cell of another healthy person, and like put those together rather than just one single cell? The person wouldn't look the same. They'd have like two different, they'd have more characteristics about them. Like they're not going to have like 4 eyes or something. So like you wouldn't be a copy of another person, yet you'd be totally healthy and wouldn't have the diseases, wouldn't you?
You mean like taking 2 healthy people instead of just one, using just one?
That way you wouldn't have to worry about looking
Probably can't be done.
I don't think it can be done.
Well,
You can't get 2 DNA cells.
Also, if you have 2 people, there's always possibility that they might have one chromosome for a disease. Like you can have a recessive chromosome, and as long as you have a dominant one over it, it's like, have you ever learned about with blue eyes? If you have blue eyes, that's because you have 2 recessive genes for having blue eyes. But as soon as you get one dominant gene, you won't have blue eyes. Like even if you get the one for brown eyes, even if you only have one, you'll have brown eyes. Well, that could be that's the same with some diseases. So if you get 2 healthy people, they might both have one recessive gene for a disease. So you could come up with one person out of, I think there's a 25% chance of getting a person with a disease.
So the idea is, one thing is to think about eliminating disease.
Yeah, health problems.
Health problems, and another one is to try to breed for certain characteristics or strengths or talents or skills.
Well, they could, by doing genetic engineering, you could build a perfect society.
Yeah, but then who's to say it's perfect?
In one person's mind, a perfect society. Like,
but who's to say it's perfect? Like, it's almost like Hitler.
Yeah.
He brought up the fact that everyone should be blonde and have blue eyes.
Yeah.
But
are you talking about somebody here in the group?
Well, that's what about blue eyes with black hair? I don't know. But I think, you know, like, who's to say whose traits are going to live on through society? And that's one issue that has to be brought up. Like, who's to say who's the perfect human being? One person may have one ideal, and one person may say the perfect human being is to be short because they eat less and they take up less space, and another would say, no, they should be tall because then they'll be taller and stronger. And able to do more things. There's so many different qualities that are good inside people that's why maybe it shouldn't be done, because they have so many, the differences are good.
Well, maybe when we come back in another minute, we'll be able to figure out what the perfect society is going to be and how we're going to be able to take charge of it. So we'll be back after these messages. Okay, we're back on Ricochet again, and we're still talking about genetic engineering, and we're ended before talking about the perfect society or who would make those decisions, and it sounds like we're moving towards a discussion about some of the moral issues associated with genetic engineering. At least that's what it sounds like to me. What do you think about the moral aspect of genetic engineering?
Well, there's basically two sides to it. Some people feel that it just shouldn't be done. You shouldn't tamper with nature. It's, you know, like Wyatt said, playing God. Who's to say what should be done?
They also feel somebody could make a mistake.
True, it's such a microscopic operation that it can't, you know, very many mistakes could be made without them even realizing it. And then we have like a really mutated thing. Who knows what's growing inside of someone being born? It could be a really painful experience for all involved.
Okay, so that's one side of the moral question, is tampering with something we don't really know that much about what it's going to be. What about other parts of that? You know, were there other things?
We could rid ourselves of diseases, especially birth defects.
Yeah.
That's about the main cause, and that would probably stop the lineage of it.
That would be the only way I'd see that people would want to use genetic engineering, is to use it as a form of getting rid of disease or handicaps, like when you're born. Otherwise, I can't see any way that would become useful.
Well, that's an interesting point about getting rid of handicaps. I'm sure that people who are handicapped while they're watching the show wouldn't necessarily see this as something that they should be gotten rid of.
No, just...
I mean, are you saying there's
not
something
gotten
wrong
rid of,
with
but
being
Not getting rid of,
corrected.
just so it wouldn't be a problem, like, that they'd be born fully capable, like, with no problems.
So that everyone would have a chance to be
No
healthy.
health
Not normal, but healthy.
One thing about that, on the other side of the issue again, is some people say that such diseases keep the natural order of things like population down. They're meant to be there.
But so would genetic engineering, in that fact that people wouldn't be having children the natural way, they'd be having it by
I'm just
genetic
bringing up the
engineering.
Wait a minute. Children, people wouldn't be having children the natural way. They'd be having it by
Not
genetic
if they were going to have
engineering.
it by genetic engineering.
No, they
What is
could
that?
still have children the natural way, but they could be sure that their children were healthy and would survive, so they wouldn't be having as many. In some underdeveloped countries, they have so many children, not only because they help support them in their old age. The more you have, the better off you'll be, but also because as they grow up, so many things could come along to hurt them, like diseases that could kill them, that they have so many children to make sure a few of them at least live.
But with genetic engineering, you'd be getting people that, say people who just want a boy, then they'd get boys, and like you wouldn't have to worry about it. They wouldn't be having, like, you know, but I don't think that's right. Like, if you want to have a child, you get what you get. You know?
That's what the point was brought up in our class in debate. They said, why have genetic engineering? If we have overpopulation, why do we have to develop other ways of having children when we already have enough children as it is?
Yeah.
Like they said there's absolutely no need for it.
But through this, you could get what you wanted, so you wouldn't have to keep trying and
That's
have
true.
as many kids.
Well, that's an interesting idea for you to say, to not have as many kids, as if there's something wrong with having a lot
We
of
have
kids.
4 in our
Is that-
family.
No, well,
So that would mean you could only have one. Which one would it have been in your family?
I don't know.
Okay.
No, well,
that's what I'm wondering
well,
about.
two
that.
are twins.
it's not
They weren't
necessarily
expected.
in that way. It's, in some cases, that is the reason for having more children, and
Some
they
cases,
are always saying
cruel
how
as
the
it
world's
is,
so
yeah.
overpopulated, and that would be one way to cut down population, is if not as many people are being born.
Okay, but not as many people being born, that means that there might be somebody making a decision about how many people could be born.
That's
Is
true
that,
too.
is that right?
That if
Definitely.
you've got extreme overpopulation, that's the way it works. That's what they've done in, I think, China or
Yeah,
India.
you're only allowed to
They
have
said
one.
you're only allowed one child. Take what you get. You're only allowed one child.
And I can see how genetic
leads to so
engineering
many
would work there,
murders, too.
because so many families in China have been having so many children just to get a boy, and like they've had like 8 children, and they've done it like behind the wall type of thing, because they don't want it. They want to have their boy. Whereas genetic engineering, if they want a boy that bad, they could get a boy their first time. There wouldn't be as much of a
Yeah, a lot of
population
the
problem.
a lot of the
Yeah.
time Also, they'll kill their children. If it's a girl, they'll kill it. And if they have another girl, they'll kill it till they get a boy.
Just think how precious girls are going to be in about 30 years when there's no girls in China. They're going to be really in need. Why didn't we have girls?
What about in our own society? How would genetic engineering apply in our own society then?
In
Think
our own
about
society.
it in your own family or your own friends. Are there certain people you'd want to not have born?
That's true. And who's to say that a person with Down syndrome, supposing, wouldn't be happy in their own way, in their life? They have a right to live the way they were born.
But then again,
Once they've been born, they have a right to live in that way and to
Yeah,
be
but-
supported and encouraged and treated like a
They
human
might be
being.
just as happy as anyone else.
Okay.
but by doing this, you're also bringing up the issue of playing God again. Like, who's to say who should be born and who shouldn't be born? Like, we don't have a right to say whether a boy should be born or girls should be born or what type of people
How
should
come
be
we
born.
don't have a right to say that?
It's just not right. It's not natural. Like, for all of time, people have been born just by the way it's being done, and we shouldn't,
No, that's
change.
a good point, too, though.
Yeah, but
Like,
think of all the unnatural things that go on anyway. Heart transplants,
That's
all
right.
these things, they're unnatural. Do you say we
Like-
shouldn't have them either?
Well, they're used to save life. There's a difference. It's like this is like putting off lives just so you can get what you want rather than saving a life.
But you
why
were
not?
saying because it was unnatural, we shouldn't do that. You're not necessarily putting off a life if you're having a boy instead of a girl. You're just having
You're
a boy
just
instead of a girl.
having a boy instead of a girl. I don't know.
The
we
life
don't-
is still there. And
Yeah.
also,
I guess there's no life.
if somebody says you're only allowed one child to cut down on population, you're not necessarily taking away somebody's life because they're not born yet.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about a society that says you can only have one child? And you say that's what they're trying to do in China. Would you think that something like that should be allowed here in Canada?
Not in Canada.
We don't need
We
it.
don't need it.
We don't have the
Yeah,
problem,
I
but-
think it's necessary in their case because they didn't want to end up as a starving nation, which is good. It saved them. For us,
At least they're saying you can have a child. It would be worse if they said you can have no children. That way you can at least have one child.
and 80 years from now, that civilization would be gone too.
Well, maybe it's not so much the children, but do you think there should be laws or regulations in Canada that influence how genetic engineering ought to be used?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because
We need to learn more about it first, I think. Because it has never been tried on humans, and there
No.
might be some problem with it. Like, we don't know.
it's hard to say whether it should, like we don't know what we're tampering with, and until we know what we're tampering with, we don't know. And experimentation could be painful, but I think it's almost necessary so we know what we're getting. On humans it hasn't been tested, but it has been tested with other animals, and it's worked successfully with them.
So you think
But-
it might be something that could be used with humans? You'd be willing
Yeah.
to try it out on an experimental basis?
I think it should be experimented with, but then it could be kind of scary too.
Okay, so you've kind of got both ideas, here
Yeah.
going. That's something that we'll take a look at. We'll come to a conclusion about this in just a minute after these messages. Okay, we're back talking about behavioral engineering here and genetic approaches to it and looking at helping people or actually interfering with people, and we're not decided which one it is yet. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about it and come to some conclusions about it. Wyatt, how about for you? What was your final? Okay, we're back talking about behavioral engineering here and genetic approaches to it and looking at helping people or actually interfering with people, and we're not decided which one it is yet. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about it and come to some conclusions about it. Wyatt, how about for you? What was your final view about this?
Well, my final view is that it's from a Christian point of view. I don't think that a person should have the right to play God. I think that people are going to be put on the earth as it's done. That we should just leave it as it is.
So in other words, God has got it all under control, and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Okay, do you agree with that?
Well, I do, but I can't see why, if we can't make this world a better place, why not do it? I don't think we should tamper with looks, and I don't think we should have the sort of thing where, it's going to be based on a perfect human being, but I think that maybe we should try to deter these defects. And I think we can do it through genetic engineering, not necessarily cloning, but I think that we can, you know, make it better, just heal these people inside the womb before they're born, before they have to experience the pain.
Okay. Teresa, how about for you?
I think that as long as we use it for benefits, like to help and don't go overboard and just see what we can do with it, that it's good and it should be used. And what Wyatt was saying about playing God, well, maybe if God didn't want us to do this, he wouldn't have let us discover genetic engineering.
Okay, Wyatt, do you have a reaction to that?
No.
Good point. We
You
didn't
kind of
think about it before.
agree
Yeah, that is a
way
good
Teresa
point.
put that?
True.
Okay.
Good job, Teresa.
Well, what do you think other teenagers think about this issue? Do you think it's of concern to them?
I don't think
It's
I
not
think they're
really that
ignorant on
talked
it.
about.
No, in my biology class we were talking about it just a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And I think the general view of it is that it is good and it should be used. But a few people were, like Wyatt, they said no, they didn't agree with it. They just didn't think that we should mess around with what things were meant to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of teenagers are ignorant on the subject because like if it wasn't for that one class that I had in science, then I wouldn't have known anything about it.
Okay, well, maybe today we've helped people learn a little bit more about it and
Hope so.
taken a step in that direction, and I hope we have, because this has been an interesting discussion about genetic engineering, and if people want to write to us and let us know more about it, they can write to Ricochet, CHEK-TV, 780 Kings Road, Victoria, BC, VAT 5A2. And if you have some other topics that you'd like us to talk about, write to us and let us know. We'd be glad to put them on the air. And we thought that today's topic was an interesting one, but we'd be glad to hear from you as well. So see you another time on Ricochet.